everybody. My name is Marion Koelle, and I'm going to present all about acceptability, identifying factors for the adoption of data classes on behalf of my co-authors Abdallah El-Ali, Vanessa Cobus, Wilko Heuten, and Susanne Boll. So I'm going to talk about light-white head-mounted displays you probably do not have in your face at the moment. So they're often called smart glasses, augmented reality glasses, or data glasses, as we call them in our papers. And around 5 years ago, they made the transition from our research labs to the world outside. But in fact, most people discovered them not by meeting a user on the street, but by reading about them in magazines, in journals and newspapers. And well, when I first read about those devices, like not the bulky large ones we were used to in our research lab, but like the small, nice, sleek ones, I was excited. And I was thinking, oh yeah, great, we can have information access anywhere, anytime. Well, you were all there, so we were kind of wrong. So those devices received a lot of criticism. And I just brought you one example. I'm not going to read it out loud because of like a little bit strong language, but there was a lot of criticism. For example, people were getting aggressive towards users of that kind of devices. They were raising questions about privacy or about recording without consent. And there was a lot of fears and objections what might happen when those devices become popular or distributed amongst many people and integrated in our everyday life. So we wanted to know, why were people so hesitant to accept those devices? And we conducted a first study, which was published 3 years ago at Mobile HCI 2015. And in this study, we had a look at 52 different scenarios that were randomized, shuffled, and evaluated by 38 participants based on a semantic differential. I'm not going to go into detail on this paper here, but one question that was raised when we presented those results was, well, don't user attitudes generally change over time? We have seen that in the past, for example, with the Walkman, which also then coined the so-called term Walkman effect. And yeah, we wanted to know, okay, after some time, would data classes maybe become just like quietly accepted? So what we did is we took the old scenarios, 52 of them again, and supplemented the already existing data from 2014 with 41 new participants. So we ruled out repeated participation of an individual participant in multiple runs already during recruitment, and we did that 1 year later again in 2016, where we also asked 39 participants to evaluate those scenarios again on the semantic differential, which we had used in the first paper. So overall, 118, 56 of them female participants between 18 and 56 participated in this study. Most of them were students. They were studying diverse subjects, so reflecting like the faculty-wise distribution of study subjects at the whole university, so there was no IT surplus or too many computer scientists in that sample. So yeah, back to our question. We wanted to know, did user attitudes towards data classes change between 2014 and 2016? Of course, we did not expect anyone to get super totally excited and wear them daily, but we thought, well, some slight effect should be measurable. But no, we were disappointed. We did not find any significant differences between the ratings with regard to user attitudes towards 2014, 15, and 16. So the result is for now, there has been no alternation in user attitudes towards data classes. But of course, this was not the end. So we wanted to know how to explain this. What is different about data classes? Why are they perceived differently? Why did user attitudes not change as quickly as we might have expected? So the first thing we did is we looked into related work, into models that might explain acceptance or adoption of technology. And one model you might be familiar with is the so-called pyramid of technology, which basically describes the journey a technology takes from being first envisioned until applied, then finally accepted, until in the very end it becomes fully naturalized. And as you can see here, data classes are at the moment right on the transition between applied and accepted. So they're working, they're out there, but they are not yet accepted. This jump between level 3 and 4 is typically called disruption. But what this model did not explain to us is why we did not see a disruption yet. So what would be needed until such a disruption can happen? So we looked into more models. For example, the well-known technology acceptance model, TAM, which shows factors that actually influence acceptance. So in addition to external variables such as social influence, prior experience, job relevance, there is also perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use, which then influence the attitude towards a particular technology, which in the end ends up in actual system usage. There have been multiple theories that extended this original TAM model to account for social influence. However, it's typically criticized for its technology positivism. This means that it does not include that a user's social environment might have a negative attitude towards a particular technology. It only includes a user's social environment being in favor of using this technology. This has not been reflected by this model, as it has also been outlined by Castor Hornbeck's talk yesterday, where negative social consequences are also not covered in this family of models. So it partially explained what we are seeing, but it did not account for that increased amount of negative influence, of negative attitudes that we were also observing. If you look into SIGCHI, where social acceptance has been explained, we see that there have always been two different views covered, as for example by Brewster et al. And Montero et al. So there's always an internal view which describes the user's social acceptance, so in the internal effect of device usage on the user. For example, how comfortable or relaxed did she feel interacting with it? And we have an external view, which is the spectator social acceptance. Basically, how weird does the user look while interacting with this device? So this might partially explain the effect why data classes did not take off and why users were still perceived weird, but it was not a complete explanation. So that's why we wanted to dig further and find out what factors impede an alternation in user attitudes. And to gather knowledge about this question, we conducted an expert survey with 51 experts on data classes, including HCI and user experience design practitioners, researchers, but also journalists, early adopters, and developers. We recruited them online via mailing lists such as, for example, Kai announcements. They were presented with a brief online questionnaire, including some demographics and questions on their expert profile, and in addition with two-tiered questions based on a 6-point Likert scale, which we complemented with a free text explanatory statement. And in addition, we asked them for a ranking of given improvement criteria according to their relevance. So, back to our question, in 10 years, would we wear data glasses routinely? Yesterday I heard there's a $100 bet on that. So, we asked our participants, do you expect data glasses to be worn by people as a matter of routine? For example, at work, doing sports, shopping, or to assist with housework. So, the results were positive. So 2/3 of our experts expected data glasses to be worn in everyday life within the next 10 years. You can see here definitely on the very left and definitely not, which has not been selected by any participant on the very right. But you can also see that 1/3, 17 participants, were reluctant to have to say that data glasses might even be accepted. And several of those participants restricted their prognosis to specific tasks or domains. For example, yes, they will be integrated, but for example, only at the workplace. So we looked into more detail in prerequisites that were named in the free text explanatory statement supplementing this question. And I'm going to guide you through those results a little bit more in detail with examples. So if we look at the second and third line, we see that utility and ergonomic issues were named quite frequently. So for example, participant 40 states that form factors are too cumbersome and do not outweigh the provided utility. In addition, we see also that utility seems to be a key aspect here, and that the adoption of data glasses is largely linked to finding suitable application scenarios. Participant 71 states, so given we come up with suited application scenarios, data glasses will become ubiquitous. We also see that usability was named, but not as one of the most frequently named aspects. However, participant 24 complained that data glasses won't be accepted because the interface is not nimble to manipulate. When we look into those aspects, we see that they relate back to the technology acceptance model, which we just saw a little bit earlier on the slides, namely to the factors perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. However, we see also that the social image here on the very top line has been named most frequently, where our experts actually questioned whether the lack of social acceptance is actually the factor that's hindering adoption of data glasses. In addition, there have also been ethical, legal, and moral aspects raised. So, for example, privacy of bystanders as well as recording without consent. Those have been discussed in a prior SIGCHI paper by Denning et al. Quite in detail. So I'm going to skip over this here and go to the next question. So, which of those aspects that have already been named are actually rated most important for the acceptance of data glasses? We were surprised. So it was not the social image that was rated as most important. Actually, it was the usefulness. And as you can see, usefulness was by far ranked by most participants as the most important improvement criteria. And we can see that the social image is not ranked as important, and that bystander privacy seems not to appear relevant to our experts yet. So we were thinking a lot about social acceptability, and for this reason we asked our experts how relevant they deem social acceptability for the success of data glasses, and they were largely divided. So on the right you see those who rated them as unimportant up to very unimportant, and on the left you see slightly important, important up to very important. As you can see, our experts were largely divided here, And they were also divided with regard to the question whether social acceptability is a matter of time or exposure, or whether it might even come naturally. However, they also mentioned one other aspect, which is unobtrusiveness. This is why, thanks Niels. I'd like to point to the topic of unobtrusiveness, where our experts deemed the resemblance to prescription glasses as crucial for the adoption of data glasses. However, the opinions diverged with regard to the right amount of unobtrusiveness. So one of the participants stated that subtle design that allows them to stand out but not so obviously different would be required. And participant 26 also raised the issue that there's manipulations that are highly visible but the effects are not. So it's unsure what's actually going to be the right amount of unobtrusiveness in the design of data classes. So, summing up, acceptability of technology often equals a weighting of benefits, where we also saw in our data the Shackles acceptability equation reflected, where utility, usability, and likability are balanced against costs, where costs also includes social consequences, for example, appearing weird, which then equals acceptability. So this leads us to the conclusion that while social acceptability is considered relevant for the time being, experts expect it to be overwritten by more fundamental factors on the long run, so for example usefulness, utility, or also usability. However, of course, we have a long way to go. So usefulness, there's room for improvement, particularly for in-depth requirement analysis, for use cases where augmented reality smart glasses should be used, and also for usability as well as functionality. An unresolved question is yet unobtrusiveness, particularly the question what the right level of unobtrusiveness for those devices should be. And with that, I'd like to conclude, and thank you very much for your attention.
So we do have time for like 3 questions.
Hello, I'm Junior Lee from KAIST, South Korea. First, thank you very much for the very interesting presentation. My question is that Steve Jobs is famous for saying something like, people don't know what they want until it's handed to them. So does any of your model capture this kind of sentiment? For example, if we asked somebody from the 1990s, would you like to carry a high-performance computer in your pocket? People probably would not have answered yes. So does any of your models capture this kind of sentiment? And also, was there any case in history a hated device became very popular over a very short amount of time?
Okay, I think I'll answer the last question first, because that's the very quick one. Portable music devices were one example of a device that was hated first but then became very popular. And as far as I know, also consumer cameras and bicycles fall into that category. So yes, that was basically the kind of observations that led us to asking the question, okay, would there be a change over time? And for the second question, actually this is not reflected in our models. However, we had the observation, which is also the reason why I started with a picture of me reading a newspaper. The difference between the effect we observe today with data glasses is that people are not encountering on the streets before getting or building their own first opinion, which was most likely the case with the Walkman. They were first meeting a person who owned a Walkman and maybe also presented them with their functionality but with data glasses this is not the case. Outside of this room, most people have never had one of those devices in their hands, although they have fears and objections what might happen when those devices are actually being part of our everyday lives.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you guys don't have a question, I have one.
Yeah.
So I was thinking social acceptability might have also something to do with a use case, right? So maybe if, let's say, a person with visual impairments is wearing like a seeing aid or something like this, the social acceptability changes a little bit. Like if smart glasses would be seen as accessibility device. Did you also like get comments towards that direction, or what was the general impression on that?
Okay, so first, this is absolutely true what you're mentioning. There has been great work on that topic titled the AT effect by Heli Profita, I think the Kai 2 or 3 years ago. So actually assistive devices, also if they are data glasses, are perceived more socially acceptable than if you would use them just for fun. We did not receive any comments on this in this study, but in the first study, which we used as a basis for the long-term tests, we actually found that in working scenarios the acceptance is much better because data glasses there are inherently perceived as a professional tool.
Okay, thank you. Let's thank Marion again.